What was the creepiest thing that ever happened to you when you were at home?
XGF walked suddenly out of my bedroom down the hall, opened the closet by the door, grabbed a pair of her shoes from the back, said, "I've been looking for these," and left. This was 4 months after I'd broken up with her. Still not sure how she got into my bedroom, but I changed all the locks and got a security system after that. I was maybe 10 years old and my mum had nipped out to the shops to get a few bits, so I was home alone. My uncle lived next door and we lived on a private road, so it was all very safe. I was watching TV in the lounge when I hear this large thud from the room above. I remember it being a loud thud, as we had this large chandelier that would shake and jingle if someone above ran across the floor, for example. So I'm 10 years old, looking up at this chandelier that's gently swaying from something upstairs, and I just nope out of the house. Terrified, I locked the front door and sat outside until my mother got back. She just assured me something had probably fallen over, so we both went upstairs to check and there was nothing out of place. All the windows were closed and all doors were locked aside from the front door, and I'd have heard someone come through there as it was next to the lounge. There are a few more unexplained stories from that house, like plugs being removed from sockets behind units no one had moved, doors randomly opening on their own and things randomly going missing to reappear again later, but overall it was a nice house to grow up in. Looking back, I'm sure there is an explanation, but it's definitely creepy. End of the semester my junior year in college I lived in a 3-story townhome, where the first story was just a carport and you'd take stairs around the back to get to the front door. Anyway, by this time in the year most of the students had left the college town except for the ones that had finals on the last day of finals, e.g. me and my roommate. So we had been studying till about 3 in the morning and we both ended up knocking out on these couches we had on the main floor by the front door. At around 4:30 a.m., I think, I heard my roommate get up and lock the door. That woke me up and in a half-asleep state I asked him, "Why are you locking the door?" He responded that someone just opened the door and closed it. I was too tired to care and attributed it to him sleepwalking and laid my head back down and closed my eyes. Not 30 seconds later, I hear the front door start to rattle and see the knob turning. I looked at my roommate and we both stayed silent and still. I grabbed a knife I had on the coffee table and just waited frozen still. Eventually it stopped, after what felt like 30 minutes, but was probably 30 seconds, and we heard a truck start and drive away. When we woke up the next day we saw cop cars outside, and apparently like 7 out of the 10 houses in my community had been broken into and robbed. Woke up in the middle of the night by the sound of happy children laughing in the living room. We didn't have any children. I somehow managed to find the strength to get out of bed and step out into the dark living room. I have read way too many horror books and is very afraid of the dark, so I still don't know how I managed. I peeked into the dark room ready to face whatever ghost children that was lurking in there. Turned out that one of our cats had stepped on the remote and started the TV. I was house sitting in my parents' basement by myself a few years back watching Monday Night Football. There was a storm outside, but nothing crazy. All of a sudden, the power goes out and I hear water gushing in their storeroom. I run in with nothing but my phone flashlight and there's a small waterfall flowing out of the wall around a pipe. I grab a nearby 55-gallon storage tub, thankfully empty, and put it under the flow. When it's about half full, the power kicks back on and the water stops. I dump the water out in their sump pump pit, waiting for it to happen again. It hasn't happened once in the 4 years since. They even had their foundation inspected, and it came back as all good. Pretty sure they don't believe that it actually happened. I wonder myself occasionally, to be honest. About a year ago, I was heading up to bed from my computer at about 2 a.m. or so. I went up the stairs and into the bathroom. The bathroom in the upstairs had a small window in it, between the toilet and shower. I'll provide a drawing soon as I can. The way the bathroom was laid out, when you walked in you would see out the window. So I walked in and I saw something. It was very tall and skinny, and it was on the roof of the neighbors across the yard. I froze in fear, then it turned its head 180 degrees, like an owl, and looked towards my house. I ran out and went straight to bed. As I was trying to sleep I heard a tapping on my window. It stopped soon after, then I heard a loud bang. After I woke up the next morning, I saw a big stone by the fence. It likely caused the bang. I still have no explanation as to what it was, and what caused the tapping. As a child I grew up in a midrise in Amsterdam. They're kind of old houses with really bad insulation built in the 1930s or so. Above us lived a loner guy with severe schizophrenia, and thanks to the cardboard walls and floors, we could hear him to talk to himself and sometimes shout or scream. One day he decided to have something against my parents and openly plotted to murder my dad with himself, and we could hear everything. We called the police and my dad had a confrontation with the guy on the stairwell connecting our homes. Fortunately nothing happened and the guy was arrested and spent a year in a clinic where he got treated for his psychosis. But yeah, hearing all that as a little kid was frightening and confusing. I felt like I was being watched when I was maybe 9 or 10 years old living on the farm. It was really dark out though, so it was nearly impossible to get a good look outside. Turns out the foster kid of our nearest neighbor was a pervy and somewhat violent teenager who would creep over on foot and stalk my sister. I don't know for sure if he was looking in on us that night, but we found out later that this is something he did other times. He moved away some time after that because he sexually assaulted someone at his school. I dunno what happened to him after that. I was asleep on my side and I felt a hand move up my arm and my friend whisper in my ear. I immediately woke up because I was home alone. Checked the whole house and was in fact still alone. It felt surreal and I even called my friend to ask them if they had been at my house and they were in another state on vacation. This still actually happens to me fairly regularly, whether I'm with other people or not. It doesn't freak me out as much anymore, but it does always wake me up very quickly. I'm fairly confident it's related to hallucinations associated with high pain. I hallucinate when I'm normally awake with high pain as well. Posted this before. My 4-year-old son had a habit of announcing when he had to use the bathroom. He would say, "I gotta go potty." One time he makes his business known and heads off toward the bathroom. He returns seconds later and says, "There's already someone in the bathroom." Now I do know for a fact that it's just the two of us home, so the hair stands up on my neck. I ask him, "What do you mean?" He repeats, "There's already someone in the bathroom." Now I'm thinking, is it someone I see dead people, or someone in a hockey goalie mask? So I grab the biggest knife from my knife block and tell him to stay here. I walk to the bathroom, take a wide angle to see in, nobody. Slowly and quietly walk toward the shower and pull back the curtain. Nothing. By now my son has walked around the corner and I ask him, "Where did you see the person?" He points to an unflushed toilet and says, "See, someone's already here." His big brother didn't flush the toilet. I felt somebody staring intently at me. It woke me up and I couldn't bear it. I had to forcibly wake my husband up and have him escort me downstairs to where my dog was sleeping so I could cuddle him as my husband made me a drink. It took several hours and daylight before I could go back into my bedroom, and that night I insisted on bringing my dog upstairs with me. I never felt anything like that again. What's even more disturbing is my bedroom window leads directly onto a house extension, and it would be very easy for somebody or something to get up there and stare through my bedroom window. Yes, we checked. I found out weeks later that my husband found what looked like muddy fingerprints on the outside of the window that he didn't tell me about. Woke up in the middle of the night by the sound of happy children laughing in the living room. We didn't have any children. I somehow managed to find the strength to get out of bed and step out into the dark living room. I have read way too many horror books and I'm very afraid of the dark, so I still don't know how I managed. I peeked into the dark room ready to face whatever ghost children that was lurking in there. Turned out that one of our cats had stepped on the remote and started the TV. My mom left the house for a bit one afternoon when I was probably 11-ish. I was just chilling in the living room doing homework when I saw movement in the backyard. Some guy was just walking around the house, and he wasn't a neighbor. He seemed to be surveying the house, too. I hid somewhere and called my mom in a full-on panic, only to find out she'd forgotten to tell me somebody from pest control was coming out that day to check on some traps. My dad got a prosthesis arm since he lost his arm in an accident, and he usually takes it off in evening while we watch TV. One evening when I was younger, we were watching Spider-Man when the power turned off. I lighted on a match in the dark just to find myself in front of his false arm. Never been so scared for my entire life. I moved into my apartment and did a wash of my clothes. The washing machine is well away from the lounge and so is where I hang my clothes to dry. After hanging clothes to dry, I sat down to watch TV and noticed a pair of my underwear hanging off a fake plant pot I keep next to the TV. To this day, I have absolutely no idea how they ended up there. It's honestly in a place that my clean clothes would never get to. I don't believe in the supernatural, but this one did puzzle me.